What is your career dilemma? Hello and welcome to That Career Dilemma Show. I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program, where each week we talk to you about how to sell you. What that means is we help job seekers who are looking for a better job. We help career transition people who are trying to change careers or professions. We help people interested in launching their own solopreneur ventures, and we help small business owners who want to expand their brand. Hey, that's a new one, right? Expand their brand. So those are the people we help, and the bottom line is we help you sell you by getting a better picture on how the market works for promoting yourself and getting yourself out there. That's what That Career Dilemma Show is about. Today, we're a little bit different in format. Usually we have a guest that we coach on the program, someone who we talk to about how to improve their situation and have an expert panelist. Today, we only have an expert panelist, and that's Lisa, and I will introduce you soon. Thanks for joining us, Lisa.
Thank you.
And the bottom line is that Lisa is an entrepreneur, and she's going to help you to figure out if you need to be an entrepreneur and what's going into that and why people should or should not consider that. Before we get into that, I want to mention briefly a couple things that I'm working on. One thing is that at freejobcoaching.com, you can go there and learn about the free resume analysis. And in other words, if you send me your resume, what I do is look at it and say, this is what I would do, this, and this. I don't change it and do it for free, but I would suggest to you what I would do for your resume. I guess that's part of freejobcoaching.com, the free resume analysis. Another free thing is to be a guest on this program. We've had 15 episodes, 16 episodes now, and I'm always looking for people who are in career transition who want to come on the program and enjoy some coaching that way as well. So that's another thing. Lastly, one of the other things I'm working on, I'm very excited about, this is the fall edition of Metropolitan Community College's non-credit program. I have taught with Metro for over 10 years, almost 12 years now, I guess, and helped lots and lots of students go through the programs there. They're all career related, and this coming fall, September and October, I have 4 courses in the magazine here. Create Your Dream Job comes up in September. Profit and Grow from What You Know. How to Sell You, go figure, and Side Income for Teachers. And Metro gave me wonderful coverage in that, and I appreciate that so much. Great relationship, great students, we have great outcomes. So go to mccneb.edu in order to get scheduled in for those kind of classes, or call 800-228-9553. That's my infomercial. Call 800-228-9553. Call now, and you'll get a second one free. Not really, but I often say, Lisa, that people can. Those courses cost, I don't know, $40, $45 for the price of a cheap dinner out. They can change their life.
Right. There you go.
So that's what we do. Well, that gets us to the main meat and potatoes here. I am so happy to be hosted here at HDM, Lisa Lechowitz's company, and because she's a serial entrepreneur, I'll call her, and I think she has wisdom to share with people who might be in some kind of career transition or considering some kind of launch themselves. So, Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself from a personal standpoint before we get into your company background.
Okay. Well, I have both a bachelor's and a master's in management. Okay. From Purdue University.
Wow. Okay.
And then I started out as a consultant.
Okay.
Because that was a good way to see a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different businesses. And then I spent 15 years at Mutual of Omaha.
Okay, wow.
And I worked up from a systems analyst to a senior vice president.
Oh, you started in the IT world?
I did.
I didn't know that.
I
Okay,
did.
interesting.
So,
and what was the top end?
And it was a great, I was a senior vice president when I left.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, great. That gives
and
us,
I really went the corporate route because my father was a business owner. He owned his own business.
Okay.
And I saw how hard he worked.
It's not easy, is it?
And so I thought, well, I'll go and work for a company.
Okay.
And what I saw there is that I worked just as hard. So, so I think that was in my genes, I just do what I have to do every time to get it done.
Yeah, right.
And it's not so much about working hard, it's about getting the results.
Right.
And I think that's
well, and that worked for you because 10 years you said there?
15
15,
years. Yeah.
and so you rose up through
Yeah.
the ranks too. I mean, you
Yeah,
had
but
a pretty.
it was clear to me that my run there, I just needed to change. I could see that I needed to build something for myself.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to sit on the work group for electronic data interchange,
Okay.
which was a group that first brought EDI, electronic data interchange, to healthcare.
Okay.
And so on the board, I was able to see how the laws that were going to be passed, small to mid-sized payers and providers would need outside resources to help them
sure.
comply with
Okay.
those laws.
Right.
And so that was the opportunity that I saw. I actually wrote a business plan and pitched it to Mutual of Omaha
really? Okay,
to see
wow.
if I could kind of spin
You
off.
so
and
you
be
had
a-
some of your
be a
father's
separate-
entrepreneurial genes in you.
Yeah,
so
I think
you
it,
kind of
it definitely
working-
was a genetic thing for me.
Yes,
do you know
yes.
what I mean?
Working
I
to-
do think it's possible to learn to be an entrepreneur, but I think many people either have that itch or they don't. you
Right, I
know?
agree. I mean, I
And
agree.
so if you have the itch, then I think you have to pursue it at some
Right.
point. The good thing about working in a corporate environment, though, for some time, is that you learn lessons on somebody else's nickel. Okay?
Good point. Yeah.
Because honestly, there are so many things you have to have today to be in business.
Right. Very complicated.
Just all the documentation, all the different licensing, having to go to the Department of, the state.
Equal employment opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just all those things.
all
I mean,
sorts of-
I think I can't even imagine what it would be like to try to do that without having had that Mutual of Omaha
Well, and
experience and
I
background.
think that's really true.
So
because
I feel like even if you know you're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
go spend a little bit of time in that
Well,
environment.
absolutely.
And the other thing is it makes you very grateful
Yeah.
when you finally do get the freedom
Sure.
to have your own thing.
Well, yeah,
Because
exactly.
you know what,
Yeah.
it's like you can't
didn't-
have light without darkness,
Well,
right?
I like
So,
that.
yeah,
That's good. That's
so
good.
I think
Your story reminds me of that of Paul Orfala, who most people don't know who he is, but people do know who what Kinko's is.
Oh.
And Kinko's, of course, is the priest. Federal. For those of you who don't know, Federal Express bought Kinko's, which was an office services store.
I
and they-
actually still call it Kinko.
I do
so
too. I always say that as well. I can't get it out of my head. Much easier than saying Federal Express or
Exactly.
something. But I read Paul's book, and it's fascinating. And they had thousands of stores worldwide. Worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
And he started with in open air Southern California, where he had a walk. They had a walk through outdoor mall, and he would just lift up the awning, and there was a copy machine. Really humble beginnings. And the thing is, what was your
That's
story
great.
reminded me of him was because Paul started that when he was 18 years old,
Yeah.
and he kept with it. I can't remember 20, 30 years or something like that before selling to Federal Express. Well, the story he conveys in his book is kind of cute. He's bossing someone around or telling someone about something, and he's getting some pushback from some of his senior executives, and someone said to him, "Well, Paul, if you'd ever had a job in your life, you would know that this is how this works." He's 18 years old, started this company, got on a
Right.
roll, and he had no frame of reference about
Yeah.
the outside world, about what it is, and that's exactly
well, more
what you're
power
talking
to
about.
him if he can do
Well,
it.
yeah,
but
at age 18,
I
but-
really feel like it helped me.
Well, yeah,
have-
it's a great
have
frame
more.
of reference, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had a couple of staffing companies on my own along the way, and without having worked for much bigger companies that do that, I would not have known what I was doing at
Right.
all, would not have the frame of reference, absolutely. So education, frame of reference, all that is pretty important when a person has that background, is what you're saying. Well, Lisa, let's back up just a little bit, and you kind of hinted at some of this. Tell us you told us about some of the technical things that you saw on the changes on the landscape of the payer side that you were doing. Tell us briefly about one or two of your businesses, about HDM and about discovering HIPAA.
Well, HDM was, again, I had made the business plan to figure out how to provide resources to small and mid-sized providers and payers as this EDI took over
You were pitching
healthcare.
this at Mutual?
I pitched it at Mutual, but
okay.
then I went ahead and used it on my own. Now, we really started HDM at the kitchen table, right? And my first client, instead of providing an implementation fee, they provided me with computers so
Okay.
that we could do work.
Oh, okay.
So this is, I mean, it was a startup in the purest sense of the word,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We were bartering, negotiating.
Exchanging services.
Yeah.
We can't
So
pay you,
it
but
wa-
we can give you a
yeah,
computer.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and-
So we came from,
Well,
it was a bootstrapping
Yeah,
operation that
absolutely.
came
Well,
from
I
the
mean,
bottom up.
And advising to other people, I'm going to stop you just a second. Other people, I mean, if someone thinks, oh, I got to have $100,000 or $1 million to
Right.
start a business, is that always the case?
Well, interesting point, because some colleagues of mine started a third-party administration the same year that we started HDM.
Okay.
The first thing that they did is they used their resources and family ties to get $1 million loan
Oh, wow.
so that they could get an office space, build offices,
Wow.
get all the equipment they needed, and so forth, okay? HDM had none of that. We had a small office space. We
Yeah.
bartered and loaned and borrowed everything we could until we started paying for it ourselves.
Right, right.
Had no debt.
Seriously bootstrapped.
No debt.
Yeah.
And in 2003, we bought that TPA actually from First National Bank.
Oh, you bought that company?
Who owned it because the loans
yeah,
defaulted.
yeah,
okay,
well,
so
overhead is a
just
killer, right?
It is. It's a
Yeah.
killer. And so to me, to go out and get a loan to start a business is,
Yeah.
it's just not the way that
Well,
I would do it.
you're-
Now you can do it in some cases,
Yeah.
but it's always riskier
And
than
I'm
if you
just
just
amazed
start.
at some of the Silicon Valley type of things that, and in fact, I've gone to many different groups in Omaha, business startup groups, where they, typically young people talk about, well, you know, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm going to get my venture capital and I'm
Right.
going to get my VC money and I'm going to get investors, and because they read about Facebook or, you know, Apple or whatever, and I'm the old guy and I sit and scratch my head and say, well, how about if you get some customers? Wouldn't that be smart?
Yeah.
You know, and somebody who pay you instead of owing that money, because I don't know what the percentages
Right.
are, but so many of those startups fail, of course.
Yeah.
And
I think only about 10% of new businesses
Is that
are
right?
successful.
Yeah, somebody told me the other
So-
day if they made it to 7 years,
Right.
that then they're going to probably exist. But
Right.
7 years is a long time when you're bootstrapping. I mean, tell me
Correct.
some of the
Correct.
nuts and bolts stories about payroll making or
yeah,
you know, all
no,
that kind
well,
of thing. Yeah.
We were fortunate
The
that
white
we
knuckle times.
became a very fast-growing company
Okay,
then.
and why was that?
And it was really because of the law, the HIPAA law.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of requirements that became necessary for payers and providers to meet.
Right.
And we happened to be there at the right time with the right products and services.
Okay, right, good.
And so we...
Well, that's, you know, earned
in the-
over 15 years of your wisdom in a corporate setting.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
that you didn't just happen to luck into something.
Right, no. Well, what is luck? Luck is where preparedness meets opportunity,
Yeah, so-
right?
and you were
Yeah,
both,
and that's
yeah.
really what we
Yeah.
had going at that
Okay.
time. And so it became very fast growing, and so cash was flowing.
there, yeah.
Okay,
And you had
so
no debt.
we never got a line of credit for
Yeah, that's
a very
wonderful.
long time. So
That's
it
a great
was,
story.
It was a great way to do it.
Well, and
then our Discovering HIPAA product grew out of our own need because HDM is a covered entity because it was providing services.
Tell us briefly what HDM does in case people missed that.
HDM is an entity that helps payers and providers find a better way to process healthcare transactions.
Okay, perfect.
And so we do electronic data interchange. We do custom coding for people that cannot take the standard transactions
Okay.
in.
Okay.
So we do a lot of claim processing
Okay.
and paper to data translation.
Sure, a lot of that
for
back office stuff
back
that keeps
office
the
stuff, correct.
keeps the providers paid and
That's
keeps
correct.
the people
The
insured
payers
and all that
moving
kind
the
of thing. Yeah.
work.
Very
Yeah.
complicated, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You learned a lot.
complicated, but there's a lot of it still.
Well, and you've earned your way along it. And so, how did the Discovering HIPAA product come along?
So in 2004, HIPAA was passed in 1996, and then it was required to be implemented in 2004. As a covered entity, we had to train all of our staff and meet all the HIPAA requirements. And so we developed online training to train our own staff,
Okay.
and then identified that our current customers at that time wanted to use that
They
same
could also
training.
use that, yeah.
So we provided it to them, and then we realized that it could be a product standalone on its own.
Awesome.
And
yeah.
then about 2 years ago, Joy Miley joined me.
Okay.
And she's an actual healthcare provider.
Okay.
And so she is also now part of that. We spun it off as a
Right.
separate business.
And I understand Discovering HIPAA has had a good success out there. How many people have you trained with Discovering HIPAA?
Yeah, we've trained over 250,000 people with our online product, and we've also expanded services to include other things such as the gap analysis
Awesome.
and HIPAA audits. And
Yes, and the HIPAA is a
policies
very
and
complicated
procedures.
thing, but it sounds like you folks have mastered it somewhat and are helping lots of other small and large providers to deal with HIPAA issues.
Right, and that's really, I mean, I think behind all of your desire to own your own business has to be some passion about what you do.
Well, and that's where
and
I
there
was
has to
going
be
next,
a
yeah.
why, right? A
Yeah.
purpose.
Well,
beyond just coming in every day and
Right,
working.
right, I
and I
mean-
think that's where, if you're in a corporate environment, it gets to the point where you say to yourself, is that all there is, right? I
Right,
mean,
yeah, well, you have to-
and I mean, some people, their why is there in the corporate environment, and
Sure.
it works for them.
Sure.
But for some people, at some point, it's like, I really need to do something more.
Well, and that's
Meaningful.
there's a sense of calling, sense of control. A lot of people start a company because of those things. What was it with you? After 15 years, you saw an opportunity. At 15 years at your corporate
Right.
job, you saw an opportunity. You pitched it to your employer. What happened then, and how did HDM come as a
Well,
result?
at that time, Mutual of Omaha was investing in HMOs around the country.
Okay.
That was when managed care was first starting
Right.
to come in, and they were actually losing quite a bit of money
Ouch.
in investing in HMOs.
Yeah.
So they said they didn't want to make any different investments. They were going to keep
Right.
on that path.
Oh, I see.
So then
We'll keep losing money
So
here.
then I decided that, I really felt strongly about the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do it. And so I took that as the opportunity to
And you
to
separated
just
from the company.
separate
and you
and
just
pursue,
saw that opportunity out there
Right.
and ran with it.
and pursue it.
And I hear that all the time. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business launchers, a lot of people in career transition, and I call it profit and grow from what you know in my course, because that's so often the case, Lisa. People
Right.
learn a niche, they learn something. I mean, I learned how to be a headhunter on someone else's nickel and
Right.
went out and did my own. I learned about a few other things and did my own. That's what people should do. If they want to just jump into a business, I mean, what should they do first before taking that leap?
Well, I think making a business plan is a really good step, because it forces you to think through, your dream, right?
Yeah.
I mean, until you put it on paper, the dream
Right.
isn't real. And so to force yourself to go through that, I think really helps you get clarity, and clarity is what helps you move forward. So.
Well, and you saying that reminds me of what I call the APE formula, APE. First of all, you have to take action. I mean, so many people have a business plan in their head or don't actually start something. Unless you take action, you're not going to learn. When I took action, when you took action, we all made plenty of mistakes.
Right.
Right? And then the P is the passion, just what you talked about. Do something you love, do something that is a calling, it's a purpose. And then E is I call it enthusiasm, but it's really selling. I mean, unless you...
Right.
And a lot of people know about how to do their business, but they don't know what key part when they start their business. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to get customers. How did you guys get your customers when you started?
I will say that the APE, I had never heard that before,
Yeah.
but that does summarize what it is you need to do.
Insert
but as
picture of
far-
APE here.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as getting customers, I mean, the first customers were basically from my contact list, right?
Okay.
I mean,
And that's typical.
and people, people
Again, you
knew
learned on
me,
someone else's
I
dime,
knew them.
right?
They had the need. We filled the need,
Right,
and so
okay,
that
sure.
worked well.
That started there.
And then we were able to hire salespeople.
Okay.
And we had processes that they followed.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you had built systems and processes
Well, that's
before.
the key, and that's why I think it went more smoothly than it may have,
Absolutely, yeah.
because of that background and
Yeah.
corporate knowledge of how to do
Let's
that.
say I'm an employee of XYZ company and I was laid off or fired or just plain had enough, and I want to start a business. What advice do you have for someone who's just thinking about that at that point? I mean, what should they do first?
Well, I think the first thing
I
is
guess
to
you told
figure
us
out what you're
business.
excited about, though,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I mean, because there's a lot of businesses out there, a lot of them for sale too.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
you can buy a franchise. There's a
Right,
lot of ways
right,
to go
right.
into business for yourself.
Right.
What is it that really turns you on?
Right, right.
And that's really got to be, to me, the first step.
Sure.
Then you can do research about, okay, so what other businesses
Yeah.
are in that
Right.
niche?
Right. What
Then
do you-
you'd write your
right.
business plan,
Okay,
and then
gotcha.
you'd go
Yeah, it's
start
important to
getting
see-
your first customer.
Yeah,
Because
it's a-
guess what? As soon as you have your first customer, you're in business.
There you go. Someone's paying you
Yeah,
for
they
something.
pay you, you're in
then you're in
business.
business, and
Yep.
hopefully you keep that repeating and
Correct.
going on. I
Do it.
and,
Do
you know,
again. Do again. Do again.
yeah, rinse, lather, repeat. Right. Well, that's all good advice, and it's important to know for people who are considering it. Because we've talked about, just in summary, that you don't always have to have a big loan on the front end, and overhead can be bad in some cases. Talked about having passion for what you've done. Lisa had a calling that she could do something more and better, and in fact gave her employer the opportunity to do it, but they went a different direction, so she went a different direction. And how long has HDM been around now?
21 years.
21 years, and how
Yep.
about Discovery and HIPAA?
Well, again, we started that in 2004, but it became its own business entity in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so you've had some good success. What does it mean, Lisa, to be a serial entrepreneur? I think you've had 2 or 3 or 4 different businesses. I mean,
Well,
how complicated is that?
I think once you've done one, it gets a lot easier. It's
know-
kind of like they talk about the first million. That's always the hardest, and
Yeah,
then after
that it keeps
yeah,
going,
I don't
yeah.
know, but that's what they say.
No, you remind me of Richard Branson, because
Yeah.
Richard Branson has over 400 companies with the Virgin label
Yeah.
and things like that.
That's
and,
cool.
And I said, wow, that's complicated. But some of my research on him says that no. Well, of course it's complicated, but he's got people to run
Right.
it. Most importantly, he has systems. He has systems in place that are similar, and I'm sure he has similar accounting systems, so he could get his people get
Right.
numbers and all that on
Yeah.
in a very formulaic process. I mean, airlines are quite a bit different than a recording business, I'm sure, but the bottom line is he's built it in a way. He's another one of those guys that never had a job, so he surrounds himself with a lot of smart people.
Well, that's good. I mean, building the right team is important, especially as you grow.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you kind of start on your own.
Right.
But after that, you do have to have the
And
people in place.
what do you think
to grow
about?
it.
You reminded me here of what do you think about people who do start on their own, maybe as a solopreneur, and maybe they have skills in this area, but they don't have skills in this area. What should they do?
Well, I think a lot of times as a small company, you almost have to outsource it, right? Because you don't have enough capital
right.
to
Don't
hire
hire
a
people.
full-time
Okay.
marketing person or
Yeah.
a full-time financial person, right?
Do you think some people
So
just-
networking
yeah.
and finding people who can fill that niche
Right.
on a part-time basis, I think works really well.
What advice
when
do you
you're
have
first
for
getting
somebody who
started.
thinks they're going to do everything, and they're going to do sales, they're going to do accounting, they're going to do product and service development?
Yeah, I mean, some people can do that initially,
Yeah.
but it's probably very rare.
Yeah.
It's the 20%, not the 80%.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
So I think networking and finding other common-minded business people
Sure.
who may be able to barter or
Yeah,
trade
well,
or
you-
do things.
you've told us stories about that,
to me
sure.
is
Sure.
the way to go.
You bet.
Because it's very hard to be everything
Yeah.
to your
Well,
business. I think the other
I
risk in
agree.
doing that, it's kind of like when I read my own things that I type, I never see the typos.
Right,
But if
right.
somebody else types it for
Yeah,
me, it jumps
boom,
right
you're
off
on
the
it.
paper. So I think that's the same thing.
You
If
can't
you're
see the-
doing
yeah.
everything yourself, it becomes hard to provide the oversight
Sure.
necessary to make sure it's being done right.
I think you're absolutely right.
So
I
I
can't
think
see the
it can
forest
be a
for the trees.
it can be a dilemma for a small business owner, because if you do have the skill, you want to do it all yourself, right?
Right.
But it can be kind of a slippery slope. 'cause-
Well, absolutely, but I think very few people have those skills.
Yeah, that's
I've
for
interviewed thousands of people as a recruiter and a headhunter, and many people. I mean, I talked to for instance, I've interviewed hundreds of thousands, rather, of IT software developers and so on, and some say, well, I don't want to join your contract company. I'm just going to do it on my own. And they know their JavaScript or their .NET or whatever language.
Right.
They know it very, very well, and they know how to get around in the corporate environment. They know what their job is and what they should do. What they don't know is selling. They're busy doing their work for client A, and then the client A ends, and all of a sudden they don't have anything else. Now, a lot of times these people are very well connected in their communities and
Right.
niches, and so that helps them too. But I've seen it happen several times where they know their craft and they don't yet have the sales or the representation to get their next gig.
Right.
Have you seen things like
Yeah,
that
well,
in
and
your
I
life?
think too, like I said, the financial and regulatory requirements
yeah.
of
Oh,
owning
yeah.
your own business
Yeah.
are pretty complicated.
Right, right.
And I mean, you don't have money to pay a lawyer $250 an hour to help you with
Not at
all that
first,
in the
yeah.
beginning. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that to me is the scarier part of owning your own business.
Well, yeah, to be compliant in those
Yeah.
areas, and
So-
hence discoveringhipaa.com type of thing as well.
Correct.
And as we wrap up, Lisa, any wrap-up advice for the budding entrepreneur, or the person starting out, the person contemplating leaving a career or launching a small business?
Yeah, I think that if you know that that's what you want to do, you know it's clear to you, then just take the first step and
Take that action.
figure- yeah.
Take that action. Get it on a business plan. It'll change, but get it written down anyway.
Yep.
So great. Well, that's good advice. I thank you for joining
Yeah.
us today. That's
Thank you.
very helpful. We appreciate being at the offices of HDM. 21 years. That's
Yeah, I know.
very impressive. Very impressive.
Don't do the math on all my experience. Thank you.
I'm bad at math. So
Okay, good.
I can't do that. We'll avoid that. But it's called seasoned. That's called seasoned and successful that way. So anyway, I would like to thank the sponsors. ZipRecruiter.com helps you with one of the hardest tasks of your business, and that's hiring. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com free, and you'll see a free trial there. Also, I'd like to thank OnQMarketing.com. OnQ Marketing helps you get found in a Google search, and also does some other marketing support for you as well. So thanks to OnQ Marketing. In addition, and special thanks to Lisa and HDM and DiscoveringHIPAA.com. Check it out if you are a healthcare provider or payer or in that world somehow, or a patient. Maybe you want to know if your rights are being protected, because it's a very important type of thing out there as well. Remember my How to Change Your Life for the Price of a Dinner, Metropolitan Community College type courses in September and October. And also check out freejobcoaching.com for a free resume review, or be a guest on this show, or some other services as well. Again, I'm Paul Madsen with Lisa Lechowicz. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're planning to see you next week on That Career Dilemma Show.